This is the ProjectSpurs.com vidcast of the San Antonio Spurs' first playoff game of the 2017 season against the Memphis Grizzlies, where the Spurs, who were a 9.5-point favorite, defeated the Grizzlies by 29 points, 111-82. I'm Paul Garcia of ProjectSpurs.com. Please be sure to follow us at Project Spurs and also at my Twitter account at PaulGarciaNBA. So let's go ahead and break this game down a little bit. First, let's talk about the Spurs' top three performers. Their go-to guy, their MVP candidate, Kawhi Leonard, he had his way with the Grizzlies. You kind of knew this because Tony Allen is out of the series, and actually the coaching staff of Memphis made they made the change to put Wayne Selden in at the 2 and let Vince Carter try to guard Kawhi Leonard, which really wasn't a good thing considering the guy's 40 years old and it's really tough for him. That's a lot. That's asking a lot from Vince to try to stay in front of Kawhi and try to contain him. So Kawhi finishes with 32 points, matching Marcus Gasol for a game high in scoring. He only missed 3 shots. That's super efficient right there, just missing 3 shots for 32 points. He went crazy in the third quarter. He actually scored. Memphis matched them in points, where Kawhi put 15 points in the quarter. He scored 4 of 5 shooting, and then he also makes 7 of 7 free throws. And then overall, he also, when they double teamed him or trapped him, he ended up throwing 5 assists and going 9-9 from the free throw line in just 32 minutes. He actually got to sit out the fourth quarter because the game was already out of hand at that point. Just dissecting Kawhi a little bit, he was, anytime since he had Carter mostly on him or James Ennis, he could just take them off the dribble, off the pick and roll. He cut really hard and got into the teeth of the Grizzlies defense and put pressure on them to either foul him or make it, or he was really physical in there. Anytime he had Carter on him, he could just easily take him off the dribble as well in a one-on-one situation. He didn't have to wait for any help. When he came around screens and the Grizzlies dropped back on those screens, anticipating his drives, he would easily pull up for that open window and shoot a mid-range jumper that went in majority of the times. And then also, like I said, he was very physical inside the paint, throwing some hook shots in there against multiple defenders from the Grizzlies. So, this is going to be a problem going forward for Memphis. They don't have any defenders, since Tony Allen's injured, who are, known as elite stoppers to try and limit Kawhi. They're on that bench. So that's something to look for the Grizzlies. Up next was LaMarcus Aldridge. This was something that in the Spurs qualitative and quantitative preview that I put together that I noticed was that Aldridge had a really good few games against the Grizzlies when he did play with Allen off the floor. He really attacked Zach Randolph, and he really had his way with JaMychal Green as well. Well, this time, he actually looked even more comfortable in a playoff game against Marc Gasol. The Grizzlies put Marc on him a few times, and LA was comfortable using his post-up, the over-the-shoulder shot, his face-up shot, versus JaMychal Green, Gasol, Zebo. He was very physical with all three as well, getting into them and throwing those little hook shots and putting some pressure on the refs to call some fouls. So LA finishes at 20 points in 30 minutes. And again, this is something you're going to be able to see, I think, a lot during the series, is LA having pretty decent games against these guys. They don't have many stout defenders down there who can stay with Aldridge outside of Gasol. But even then, if they have to commit help to him, it's hard because then Kawhi needs help as well. So it's going to be very hard for the Grizzlies to pick and choose which of the two, Kawhi or Aldridge, that they want to double team. Lastly, Tony Parker turned back the clock with the vintage performance. Now, when I was watching film of the Spurs' prior games against the Grizzlies, it actually shows that Parker was actually okay getting to the rim against Conley. That's one of those matchups where Parker has a little bit of a height advantage against Conley, and also just some more of like I guess you would say like a body figure advantage, a little bit more physicality. And so he takes it upon himself to attack Conley. It doesn't matter if it's off a pick and roll or if it's in a one-on-one situation. He's okay attacking him. And, he showed that Saturday night. He actually made 3 vintage teardrops against the Grizzlies. When a big would get in his way, like Marcus or Brandon Wright or somebody, he would just drop in that teardrop over them. Like I said, he got into Conley physically. He didn't mind attacking him. Really, almost like a semi-post move against him as well several times. And then he was also took him off in one-on-one time. So Parker finishes with 18 points. He had no turnovers, and he only played 22 minutes. I mean, who could have guessed out of, everybody talks about how Parker's the worst starting point guard in the Western Conference playoff race, and who knows? I mean, who tells in game 1 he actually outscores Conley by 5 points. So Parker had a really good game for San Antonio. Now, I don't know if you can expect that every night, but I think you can expect, 12 to 13 points from Parker in this series. Like I said, he's comfortable attacking Conley or Andrew Harrison off the dribble. The Spurs' X factor has to go to Danny Green. Obviously Danny didn't score much, just 2 points, but it doesn't really matter because the box score, some of the things that he did aren't painted on the box score. He had 5 rebounds and 4 blocks, but it's the defensive job he did on Conley. After the first quarter, Conley was scoring pretty well. And in the second quarter, Coach Pop put Danny Green onto Conley, and from there, I mean, it was just tough for Conley to score. Danny held him scoreless after that point. From the 8:40 mark was Conley's last bucket. Green did a really good job of anytime Conley asked for a pick and roll, Green stayed on his hip. That allowed Green to stay within his vicinity, so that if Conley beat him off the dribble, Green could contest his shot, or as you saw in some of the highlights, that he actually blocked one of Conley's layups. Danny also did a pretty good job of there was a transition possession where Brandon Wright was out on the break, and Danny kind of gambled his way and came out successful as he stripped Wright instead of giving up the dunk opportunity. And then also on Conley, LaMarcus Aldridge helped out Green a little bit too by switching on him at different times. So I think Danny needs to get the X factor recognition in his 20 minutes of play, especially with the defensive job that he did on Conley. The interesting thing to see now will be, is Pop going to start doing this right at the start of the game instead of waiting to the second quarter? Is this something he's going to see? If it is, something you're going to see, then this is going to make life really tough for Conley going forward in this series, because Danny's really not going anywhere unless he gets into foul trouble. The Spurs' offense, in a blowout, their numbers are going to look pretty good. So they shot 53% from the floor, made 10 threes on 53% shooting. One of the problems the Grizzlies do have with Allen off the floor is that they do foul a lot. And so, you can see here, Spurs got 25 free throws against them. Kawhi had 9. Aldridge had 5 attempts. Passing, because the Grizzlies are a very good defensive team, they still make possessions really tough for you to score as a team. So the Spurs only had 16 assists and 41 made field goals, which is a 39% assist rate. Again, though, the Spurs were okay taking some of their isolation shots and some shots very late in the possession where it didn't count as an assist. San Antonio took care of the ball with 10 turnovers for just 14 Memphis points, and the Spurs' bench outscored the Grizzlies' bench 39-25. Defensively, the Spurs held the Grizzlies to 39% shooting. They limited them from the three-point range 7-20 shooting, and they only gave them 13 free throws that they made. One of the Spurs' concerns that Manu Ginobili addressed Friday was keeping the Grizzlies off the offensive glass, and the Spurs did that very well. They out rebounded Memphis by 8 boards, and they only allowed 8 offensive rebounds for the Grizzlies. Because the Grizzlies don't have a lot of firepower already outside of Conley and Gasol, it's important for the Spurs to keep them off the glass so that extra possessions don't come into play. And by doing this, a Spurs lead just continues to grow that much more, and the Grizzlies can't grow out of those holes. And like when the Spurs were down by 13 points, it was easier for San Antonio to kind of claw back into the game because the Grizzlies can't really pound more on that lead and build it up. In transition, Memphis only scored 11 points, so they're not a great fast breaking team. So the Spurs were kind of able to contain that element. Let's look at the Grizzlies' 4 playmakers. Marc Gasol, he basically had his way. He torched anytime Dwayne Dedmon or Pau Gasol were on him, his own brother. He kind of torched them for 32 points on 18 shots. In the second half, you saw more of LaMarcus Aldridge guarding him. And though Gasol did make a few more buckets on Aldridge, they were really tough buckets. They were contested over the shoulder type shots that Marc really doesn't want to be taking. They're not really efficient looks. So while he had a great game efficiently, it still wasn't enough because the Grizzlies still, were down by 36 points and what we would say was a blowout. As I mentioned about Conley, 13 points on just 14 shots. Yeah, Patty Mills gets some credit too for making his life tough, getting physical with him, trying to continually scrap at the ball. As we already mentioned, Danny Green and then also Aldridge did a great job of switching on him and kind of just keeping him in front of him, even if Conley got some open, some what we call semi-contested looks from the outside. A lot of talk was about how Zach Randolph was going to have his way with David Lee coming into this game. And after the game, though, you can tell that Lee was actually the guy who played pretty well against Randolph. Zebo only scored 6 points on 13 shots. Lee was very physical with him, didn't let him get into his sweet spots that early in the possessions. And then anytime Zebo did catch the ball in the low post, San Antonio sent multiple defenders at him. Because Memphis doesn't have a lot of shooting on the outside, the Spurs' bigs and their wings, they continually try to swarm Zebo and make his life difficult and made him take some really tough shots, and it worked out for them. And lastly, the Grizzlies' last playmaker is Troy Daniels. Usually during the season, he really wasn't able to get loose as well. He only got 3 shots. Most of those were forced shots where he was just trying to get himself involved in the game for 0 points. So, going forward, you can expect Conley to play a little bit better. They'll make some adjustments. So one thing you saw a lot was that 1-5 pick and roll between Conley and Gasol to try to get Green on Gasol and Conley with the big on his matchup. And so in the future, Conley should make some more of those shots. I don't think Gasol's going to score that many points again. That was probably one of his better games in the series. But outside of that, I mean, you look at their roster, the Grizzlies roster up and down, and they don't have much other firepower. That's why I did pick the Spurs to win a close 4 games in this as my prediction. It's because I just don't see the firepower on Memphis's roster right now. There's nobody on that roster who you're expecting to give you an extra 20, 22 points off whether off the bench or in the starting unit. So that's something to look for going forward, is where do the Grizzlies get this extra shooting from? The Spurs' next game will be Monday, April 17th, Game 2. Tip-off will be at 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time in Texas for the San Antonio folks. It'll be aired on TNT and Fox Sports Southwest. Be sure to visit ProjectSpurs.com. We'll have a lot of great pieces coming out. John Diaz will have an adjustment piece. Tom Petrini is going to have some takeaways from Game 1. Steven Anderson has his recap live on the site already. And then also visit AnalyzingTheLeague.com, where I'll be continue to follow the NBA as a whole, and then also listen to the Spurscast that has their most recent episodes up. For ProjectSpurs.com, this is Paul Garcia.